Hi guys, Tylord here with a movie and video games pickup video. This will probably be the last big video I do for a while because I'm going back to work on Monday. After being on disability from heart surgery, that's a long story. But I'm about 100% now. I'm going back to work, so I might not have time to make as many videos. Definitely I won't be able to watch as many movies as I have been. I have a list of movies. I probably watched like a couple hundred movies at least while I was off. A lot of them were at the gym. While riding on the treadmill, I could watch movies. So I've watched a lot of movies during my 4 months off of work. And I have about 12 movies to talk about today, so I'll get to the games first in case y'all get bored with those, because I have a lot to say about these 12 movies I watched over the past week. But I'll start off with some game pickups. I actually have one pickup from the retro store that I've been wanting to get, and I have about 7 other games I just picked up at Rasputin's for about 50 cents to $1 a piece. I got all of these games here for about $7. Nothing super special, but I'm happy to find games. I never know when they're gonna drop there at Rasputin's. I don't know if people bring them by and get like 2 cents for bringing them in, or they might get inventory from another store. But I actually found some video games this time, so I'll go back to my old style of videos, because I actually found some video games. First off, for many different old consoles I found games for. Here is for 50 cents I found Test Drive 5. Test Drive 5 for PlayStation 1, disc only. But for 50 cents I can't pass it up. I remember I liked Test Drive. I forgot if it was 5 or 6 on Dreamcast I used to play. So I'm sure this is fantastic. Found Cyber Tiger from Electronic Arts for 50 cents. That's complete. Looks like a kind of a fast-paced, fun Tiger Woods golf game. I don't know much about it. It looks kind of fun and arcadey and cartoony from what I see on the back of it. Using my old digital video camera, lower definition but nice. What Carl Zeiss lens on it. Here's the one I was really happy to find: Special Ops Stealth Patrol for PlayStation 1, 50 cents. This looks cool. Looks like a third-person shooter. Looks like you can do split screen. I'm hoping it's like Splinter Cell, and it says DualShock, so I wonder if you can use the dual analog sticks to play this game. Interesting game there. Found a couple Dreamcast sports games, NFL games. Sega's NFL 2K and 2K1. I just couldn't pass those up. Those are $1 a piece. I never see Dreamcast games anywhere. And I don't know if I'm going to keep those or not. I don't collect for Dreamcast anymore. The only thing I have back there is my Shenmue 1 and 2. And I have House of the Dead 2 with the light gun. That's about all I have Dreamcast, because I just get like burn games for it if I want to play it. I think I got rid of most of my Dreamcast games. The Xbox games, I found some original Xbox games which I collect. I just realized this one's not in the original case, which is unfortunate. But here's Rainbow Six Critical Hour, Tom Clancy from Ubisoft. These are all good. I guess I didn't have this one. I thought I had all the Rainbow Six and Ghost Recons and Splinter Cells, but it looks like I didn't have this one, so that's going in the collection. And then found another copy of Lego Star Wars, the video game. I think that's the original Lego Star Wars game. I think we already have this. My wife loves these, but I had to pick this up for 95 cents. So I don't know if anyone wants that. I should find a home for it. Then I found some 360 games, just disc only, but my buddy Mario, the Retro T-Bone, was talking about these, how fun they are. The Army of Two. Here's Army of Two 1. And looks like here's Army of Two, The Devil's Cartel. And those were 50 cents a piece. So cool to have those. I never played those before. I hear they're really fun. And then Kingdom Under Fire, Circle of Doom. And from what I remember of these, they were like strategy action games. Like you could take control of all of your troops on the field, and it's like a battle war game, like a strategy game, but you can take control of the archers or the swordsmen or whatever soldiers like on the battlefield. I remember they were pretty good. And then the last video game, that's all the stuff I got from Rasputin's. The last video game I got from the retro store, Utopia Games. And I picked up this game for $10. I thought it was a good deal. I've been wanting this game. Eternal Champions. Okay, I got a lot to say about this one. This is a game, I didn't have a Genesis when I was younger when this came out. I was heavy into fighting games, and I would see the ads for this thing, and I was really jealous that I couldn't get it because I had Super Nintendo. Eternal Champions, Sega of America game. But it looked really cool on the ads, like big detailed sprites, like really a lot of animation, and a lot of different like martial artists, and it looked like sci-fi themed. I thought it looked really cool. But I think finally I did get a JVC XI when they were cheap, and I ended up getting this, and then it was just so freaking hard I lost interest with it. Like no matter how well made a game, if it's too hard, I just can't waste all that time on it. So I kind of got turned off by this game, but I was thinking about it recently, like I should go back and try to beat it, because I finally beat Art of Fighting 2. I don't think any fighting game 2D is harder than that, and I was able to beat Art of Fighting 2, so I think I could probably do this now. So this was at Utopia Games for $10 complete with a big book. It was $10, so I got it. I brought it home. I was playing it, trying not to rage that much. So I was trying to play it around my kids so I don't rage, and it was just as hard as I remembered, but I just kept playing it and playing it and playing it. Now I have the patterns down. So I'm starting to actually really like this game. This was really popular back then. I remember the hype was real for this. Like I think it was all over the magazines, and I think it had like spin-off games, and I kind of want to get the one on Sega CD now, the sequel. But as far as this one goes, like super detailed, super intricate story. Like there's a backstory on all of the fighters. I love stuff like that in fighting games where there's like a story behind all the fighters, and it's very heavily martial arts themed and sci-fi. It kind of reminds me of like an Albert Pyun movie, a video game of an Albert Pyun, because there's like cyborgs and warlocks and fantasy stuff and a lot of martial arts, futuristic stuff. It reminds me of an Albert Pyun movie in a video game. Like the one guy's a cyborg kickboxer. But I just like the look and the feel. It looks like they put a lot of effort into the artwork on this and the style. And it's an American-made game, Sega of America. I guess the head designer, producer, what was his name? Michael Latham. I think he just passed away last year, unfortunately. And I guess he was working on a spiritual sequel to this, which would have been awesome. I guess there was originally intended to be 3 of these. Only 2 were ever made, and then Sega of America just fizzled out, and it was all the Japanese stuff. Anyway, this is a quality game. You think of usually Mortal Kombat's like the only really good Western-made fighting game, but from playing this, it's pretty intricate and pretty good controls. The buttons are laid out just like Street Fighter. There's hard punch, medium punch, light punch, and kicks also. But this came with a really thick book here. It really goes intricate, like on each character it has like 2 pages of their moves. But very much like Street Fighter in the sense where there's you hold back to block, and there's 3 punch and 3 kick buttons, and their special moves most of them are like charge moves. There might be some quarter circle moves. It's hard to master this game because all the fighters are very different from one another. And that's another thing I was going to get to. They're all based on martial arts, different martial arts styles, like different time periods. The story's really cool. It's like all of these guys are from different periods in time, and they all had an untimely death. And then this being called the Eternal Champions going back to time to get them. to prevent their death, and they're all gonna fight in a tournament to see if they're strong enough to become the eternal champion or something. But they all have a little backstory, like they all got done wrong. Like there's this guy, he kind of looks like a detective. His name's Larson. He's like a cat burglar from like the 30s, but he looks like a detective, like a trench coat. But his like style is like it's like praying mantis kung fu. So he's has like a cool kung fu style. There's a guy called this vampire guy. Kind of look. He has like a Jeet Kune Do style, so he kind of fights like Bruce Lee. There's this. There's the guy I like is called Rex. He's like a kickboxer. And he's like a cyborg, like he has cyborg parts and a cyborg eye, but he's Muay Thai. So his moves are a lot like Joe from Fatal Fury, and he even has like the wind pose that Joe has, and he has like the slide attack like Joe. So he's my favorite guy. And speaking of the difficulty, I was playing it for a couple of days, but now I got it down where I can get to the boss with one try if I use that guy Rex. But the last boss is a pain in the butt, so I'm gonna have to work on him for a while. If you get to him and lose, the game is over. You have to start all the way over at the beginning. So I don't know if that's like finishing the game with a bad ending. I don't think it's considered beating the game. The last guy looks like a pure energy form of Geese Howard from Fatal Fury. He has like a gi with the Aikido pants, and he has a lot of like Geese Howard type moves. But he's just as hard as those SNK bosses. Yeah, you have to beat like 3 or 4 phases of him to win, and you get 2 chances. I beat him 2 phases of him. You have to do all the same health bar, and I can't do it, so I got to keep trying to beat this. I'll get back. I'm hoping I can beat this before the end of the year. This would be a great accomplishment if I could beat this. Eternal Champions. Because I always knew there was something there I liked about it that I was interested in, but it was just too darn difficult. But I just sat down, now that I had some time off, to put some effort into it, and I found out it is really good. Yeah, I have a lot more to say about that, but I might leave it at that. I recommend this game. Just put a little bit of time into it, and it's really fun. Kind of the same as Art of Fighting. Like, it starts off kicking your butt, but once you get like the pattern down, it's really fun and satisfying to go through the arcade mode. And I haven't played anyone competitively like a real person, so I assume it would be pretty fun that way too. Okay, on to my movies. I got 12 of them. I already went on for probably a half hour already. Speaking of Albert Pyun, I got this movie. I just watched it on Tubi, and I happened to find it at Rasputin's. Omega Doom, and here's the double pack with Omega Doom with Rutger Hauer and Blind Fury with Rutger Hauer. Rutger Hauer double pack here. I like both of these movies. I'm not going to talk about Blind Fury right now because I haven't watched it in a while, but that is a good one. But the one I just watched was Omega Doom, directed by one of my favorite directors, Albert Pyun. I know they're typical 90s straight-to-video cyborg action movie. This one's heavy on the dialogue, kind of a slow burn movie. About the whole world's only cyborgs now. They're all androids. Everyone's at war, and they're all and the humans. You know, there's not one human in this movie. It's all androids. And Rutger Hauer was like a soldier called Omega Doom that was killing the humans, but during battle he got his circuitry fried somehow, where he grew a conscience, and now he fights for the humans. And he travels into this town. It looks like this beat-up Eastern European town. It looks like probably something they used in other Albert Pyun movies. And there's 2 different gangs of androids in this town. He's trying to take out these gangs, but they're really tough, different groups of androids. I don't really want to give too much of the story away, but he meets this woman that's a bartender. They have it's like a water tender. Like, everyone's at this town because there's water there. I guess cyborgs like to drink water too. I guess it's their coolant or whatever. And there's a lot of Albert Pyun regulars in here. Rutger Hauer's the star. He has this cool sword that looks like a He-Man sword. His sword, like, he flings it at people. It looks kind of like He-Man's sword. But a lot of Albert Pyun regulars. The main bad girl in here is part of this gang. They're called the Roms. and the main bad girl is Tina Cote, who's been in a lot of Albert Pyun movies. She's really beautiful, like really striking, unique look about her, really pretty eyes, but she's wearing shades the whole movie. She looks like something out of The Matrix. This might be before The Matrix, yeah, but the group of them, they're all these female androids, and they all have like black leather trench coats and short haircuts, black, and glasses on. And then there's another group called the Droids, and they're like kind of thuggy droids that just pick on everyone. Oh, another Albert Pyun regular in here is Norbert Weiser, plays this poor robot that's just a head, and the mean gangs are kicking his head around everywhere. He's like, no, don't kick me, no, that hurts. And that little head becomes friends with Rutger Hauer, and he's trying to take out these gangs of androids. I actually like this movie better than like the Nemesis sequels. Which is actually not that bad. It's kind of slow burn and really cheap, but I thought it was good. Rutger Hauer sci-fi movie, Omega Doom. Speaking of cyborgs, here's a really good one I just watched, Universal Soldier, directed by John Hyams, Peter Hyams' son. I watched Universal Soldier Regeneration, or the other one. This is the sequel to that. This one might be even better. This one, Scott Adkins. It has all the returning characters: Jean-Claude Van Damme, what's his name, Devereaux, and it's got what's his name, Andrei Arlovsky's in it again, and also Andrew Scott is back. Dolph Lundgren, his character is back again, and this time it's like the soldiers escape the programming of the system, and they start a cult, and they recruit all the cyborgs, and they have this cult of cyborgs, and somehow the beginning starts off really dark. Jean-Claude Van Damme and his cyborg goons go into Scott Adkins' house and murder his wife and kid and beat him up with a crowbar. He wakes up a few weeks later, and his goal is to take out Devereaux. So he's looking for him the whole movie. There's a super cool twist on this movie, but he kind of doesn't remember too much Scott Adkins. This is probably one of my favorite Scott Adkins movies. Like he goes on a freaking rampage in this, and he has a fight with Arlovsky that's badass. He has a fight with Dolph Lundgren that's badass. He has a fight with Jean-Claude Van Damme at the end. Really cool movie, really cool twist in here too. I recommend this one, Universal Soldier, Day of Reckoning. Really cool for a newer movie. Speaking of, you would expect this to be like some kind of android movie, Terminator Woman, but I was really interested in this movie. There's no like American release of it. Terminator Woman with Michelle Kesey. Speaking of Van Damme, that's Van Damme's buddy that played Tong Po in Kickboxer. He was in a few early Van Damme movies, and he's been in a lot of movies I like. He has a cool story. I was watching an interview with Michelle Kesey. But anyway, he's in there. Jerry Trimble, the kickboxing champion's like the lead in this. He's really awesome in this. I like all of the Jerry Trimble movies. And then Karen Shepard, I'm a big fan of hers. She's kind of like the Dollar Tree Cynthia Rothrock. I think she's actually fought Cynthia Rothrock in that movie Righting Wrongs. But she's pretty cool. It's like probably just as cool as Cynthia Rothrock and just as pretty. This girl, Karen Shepard, I've seen her. I like her in other movies, like she was in Operation Golden Phoenix with Jalal Murphy, and then the one that was really cool was Mission of Justice with Jeff Wincott. She's really cool in that. She's a pretty cool actor too. Like she's really beautiful, really legit with the martial arts skills. Like she's some kind of champion in real life, and really good, pretty too. But she's like the Jerry Trimble's partner. They're like cops. This gang led by Michelle Kesey is the bad guy. They're trying to find this gold. It's in I think like South Africa or something. These guys, they kidnap women and they run like a prostitution business or slavery. When Karen Shepard and Jerry Trimble are looking into this, Karen Shepard and this other really pretty girl that's at the bar they get they get kidnapped by this group and they get taken hostage in the middle of this jungle. And so the rest of the movie, Jerry Trimble's trying to figure out what's going on. There's a lot of cool action with him. He does a lot of kung fu and stuff. But then in the middle of this, Karen Shepard breaks out of this prison and's kicking all their butts, all her captives' butts, and she runs away with the other girl, and she's really pretty too. And they're running away. So there's kind of like two movies going on at once. It's Jerry Trimble trying to get to the bottom of this hidden treasure, and this gang's trying to get it, and then Karen Shepard escaping her captors. Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. It's actually directed by Michelle Kesey. So I was happy to find this. This is like a European copy, but it's Region Zero, so it plays in everything. So I was happy to get that. Yeah, really cool martial arts from Karen Shepard, and Jerry Trimble's like super underrated on film. Like he's freaking phenomenal looking on film. The moves he does. Speaking of here's more kung fu movies. G2. This movie's called G2 Mortal Conquest. I was hoping it would be like a Mortal Kombat ripoff. It's got Daniel Bernhardt from the Bloodsport sequels, and this movie, it's about he's like reincarnated version of Alexander the Great, and he's trying to find this sword. And James Hong is in it. Back from the time of Alexander, this Parmenian guy, James Hong is an ancestor, or no, he's the reincarnated version of that, and he has this sword, and all these guys that are reincarnated, whenever they die, they blow up into light like Highlander. So it's kind of like a ripoff of Highlander. But what this actually is, it's like the same movie as Swordsman 2: Gladiator Cop with Lorenzo Lamas. It's the exact same movie. It's the same director, Nick Rotundo. And it's like the exact same movie. Like James Hong plays the exact same guy in both movies, and it's like this similar plot. Like it's pretty much the same movie, only this is newer and probably not as good. This is probably one of the worst movies I've seen, but I got some in their entertainment out of it. There is cool martial art locations. There's like underground fights and underground fight locations, like in boiler rooms, and all the warehouses look really cool. And they fight with weapons in these martial art contests. A couple parts really cracked me up. Like one time, Daniel Bernhardt's fighting this guy that's a fire breather. He's blowing fire at him, but somehow he gets impaled as he's blowing fire, so the fire starts shooting out of the holes in his torso where he got impaled. He's, and fire's blowing out of the hole in him, the holes in him where he got impaled. And then at one point in this, like one of the cops, there's this lovely lady cop and a male cop. The girl cop, of course, falls in love with Daniel Bernhardt. But the boy cop, like James Hong and his goons catch him, and they're like, oh, we're gonna kill you now, and one of his men chops the guy's head off, and then James Hong, you see James Hong look down. Oh, that reminds me, I want to go bowling next week. So stupid. Anyway, I don't know if I can recommend this or not, but if you like cheesy martial art movies from like the early or late 90s, I would give it a chance. Daniel Bernhardt's always pretty cool, and James Hong is always entertaining. Alright, more martial arts. Oh man, I have a lot to say about this one. Circle of Iron on Blu-ray. I ordered this off of eBay for really cheap, under $10. It's probably one of my favorite Blu-rays I own now. It has tons of great extras. And this movie is originally called The Silent Flute. And it was written, the story was written by Bruce Lee and his buddy James Coburn, and the other writer, a screenplay writer, Sterling Silliphant. They were his Hollywood buddies that they wrote this script for, like in the 60s, and it was gonna have Bruce Lee and Steve McQueen, this movie. And it's a martial arts fantasy action movie, kind of based in like Zen Buddhism, like Zen Buddhism, like morals and lessons in this movie. But it's like a fantasy, like sort of like kind of reminds me like a fantasy, like a Conan type movie, but it's martial arts. direct, and it has all kinds of great extras. It has their director Richard Moore, who is I don't really know what he's directed, but he's done a lot of he's a director of photography, so this movie's very nice looking. This director is a director of photography. I am assuming that's why this movie looks really nice. It's a really beautiful movie. And it's very photogenic areas, like it's all shot in Israel, so there's all kinds of like Roman ruins and caves and all kinds of pretty, kind of looks like California over there, like all kinds of various different scenery over there in Israel where this was filmed. Really beautiful. But this is sort of like a fantasy story. Whoever, David Carradine and these producers, whoever got a hold of this later on in the 70s and made a movie of it. David Carradine plays the master, like this wise old blind master that has a flute that he plays, and only the lead star can hear it. The lead star is this guy that I've never seen before. What's his name? He's not that bad in it. He's kind of like a muscly guy. Oh, Jeff Cooper is his name. He's kind of like a well-built guy. He always has his shirt off. He kind of looks like Conan or He-Man or something. But he's kind of like a hard-headed guy, and he just wants to compete and find the meaning of life. There's this tournament at the beginning where all the best fighters go to, and whoever wins gets this medallion to go seek out Zoltan, and Zoltan's like the ultimate enlightenment, and he has this book that you read, and you know the meaning of life when you read this book. And so the whole, and then there's trials you meet along the way to Zoltan. So it's like an adventure movie. But the main guy's kind of hard-headed and stubborn and egotistical, and he fights in this tournament, and he gets to the end. The guy he fights at the end of the tournament is Anthony DeLongis, who's in a lot of martial art movies. He's the guy that has he's good with weapons, and he has like good with the bullwhip. He's like a trick bullwhip guy. But I didn't realize he was around back in the 70s doing martial art movies, and he's pretty cool, a martial arts action guy. But he fights the main guy. The main guy's name is Cord, and David Carradine plays like 4 characters in this movie. One of them, when he meets Cord, he says, "Cord, you mean like a chord on an instrument? Can I play you like a chord?" But anyway, he loses his tournament because he cheats. Like he knocks down Anthony DeLongis in the last round, and then he hits him when he's down, and then they disqualify him. It kind of reminds me of Mortal Kombat, the visuals, because it's kind of fantasy, and Roddy McDowell's there sitting in a chair, and he's like the Shao Kahn type guy, like Morthond versus Cord. Cord wins. It kind of reminds me of like Mortal Kombat. It's in like this old Roman like amphitheater, and there's like a fake background, like castle in the background. It looks really cool, and they're fighting in this. All these different martial artists are fighting. But anyway, they disqualify Cord, the main guy. So Morthond, the guy that Anthony DeLongis plays, goes out on the adventure. They give him the medal, and Cord's all pissed off, like, "Oh, I should be the one. He sucks," or whatever. I just beat him. He's like a really hot-headed guy, really egomaniac, and he takes stuff at like face value, and he doesn't really look between the lines. But eventually he meets up with David Carradine, this blind guy that plays a flute that only he can hear, and he kind of sets his mind straight along the way. And he goes through all these different trials, fights different people. A lot of them are played by David Carradine. It's kind of a fun little adventure movie with kind of a positive philosophical message at the end. Christopher Lee's in it. He's I don't want to give away who he is in this. Also, Eli Wallach is in here from the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So what was really cool about this is all the extras on here are fantastic. There's a commentary by Richard Moore, the director. I watched that. I watched all of the extras. There's a cool interview with David Carradine, and he's really proud of this movie. Like, this is like his favorite movie he's ever made, and like in his top 4 favorite movies that he's done. And he talks about how the flute he plays in the movie is actually he grew some bamboo forests on the Hollywood lot, and he took one of those bamboo poles, and he carved a flute into it that you could actually play, and he uses it as a weapon in the movie. But you could actually play it. I think he used the same flute in Kill Bill, so I thought that was like had cool little tidbits in there. And I was thinking David Carradine and this other guy, Jeff Cooper, looked pretty good. Like their martial arts looked pretty good, darn solid in this movie. But I don't know if it was them or it was Joe Louis, the kickboxing champion, because there's an interview in here with Joe Louis, and he throws all kinds of shade at David Carradine, like how he's an egomaniac. So a lot of like the second unit directing or the close-ups was probably Joe Louis and his martial arts buddies doing the martial arts. I don't know though, it looked like David Carradine and the other guy were doing cool stuff too. Very theatrical like fights in this movie. And then there has the producer Paul Moslansky has some really interesting stories in here. He's produced all kinds of movies all the way back to like the 60s or maybe before that. He had all kinds of interesting stories. Like he's buddies with Christopher Lee, and he was talking about how, just to name one story this guy had, it was a really cool interview he had. One story, he talked about how Christopher Lee was in the first movie he ever made called like The Castle of the Living Dead, and it was a horror movie, really low budget, and I guess Donald Sutherland was his first movie, that Christopher Lee movie, and the director's name was something, his last name was Kiefer, and I guess Donald Sutherland met the lady on this movie, and they had a kid, and they named the kid Kiefer Sutherland after the director of that Castle of the Living Dead. I thought there was a lot of fun little stories this guy had, and then the Sterling Silliphant that wrote the script with Bruce Lee had an audio interview on here, which was really interesting about knowing Bruce Lee back then in the 60s. A little audio interview was pretty interesting. Anyway, Circle of Iron, which is called the Silent Flute. And Circle of Iron doesn't mean anything. They just put that as the American title because it sounds more macho or something, because Silent Flute already doesn't really make any sense as it is if you just see that title. But I guess they thought Circle of Iron sounds cooler, and I guess the director was really disappointed with it being called that because it doesn't make any sense. Anyway, Circle of Iron, recommend that. Here's a Lorenzo Lamas action movie, CIA Codename Alexa. Okay, this movie's too hard to explain for me. I enjoyed it. CIA Codename Alexa. It's got Lorenzo Lamas as a CIA agent, kind of like an American James Bond with long hair, and he teams up with this terrorist assassin female that's really attractive, that knows martial arts and everything, and she kind of goes over to the good side to help him out to find this microchip that the bad guys have. And O.J. Simpson is the cop. He's kind of like the main good guy cop, so like he's butting heads with the CIA. And a lot of fun action in this, directed by Joseph Merhi. It's a PM Entertainment movie, so I would recommend this one. And then on this 10 movie pack with Steven Seagal right there, I watched CIA 2 Target Alexa. CIA 2 Target Alexa. Then this was actually directed by Lorenzo Lamas, and it's a sequel to the other one. He plays the same character working for the same CIA agency, and the same girl gets involved. They're looking for another microchip, and they want her to go infiltrate one of her old lovers who's a terrorist camped out in another country, and so they want her to go infiltrate him. So it's kind of like and then there's all different kinds of bad guy factions. They're all going to do this deal for this microchip, and they all start turning on each other, and people turn on someone. There's all kinds of different groups. They're all turning on each other. But a lot of action again in this one. I don't know if I like this one more or the first one. Okay, that's it with the martial art movie. Sorry about that, kids. Okay, on to some scary ones. I was able to watch a couple scary movies for Halloween. Spring Break Shark Attack. This is the second time I've watched it, and I didn't remember much about it. The actual sharks don't really look that bad. They look phony as heck. A lot of times it's just like fins floating around out in the water. They don't look that bad. It's pretty much just the story of this young lady that wants to go to spring break, but her dad doesn't want her to. And she's like, why can't I be promiscuous, Dad? You're cheating on Mom. Like, there's all kinds of drama in their family. And she goes, I want to go have fun at spring break. But it doesn't really make any sense because the main girl's like a good girl that doesn't like to drink or party, but she still wants to go to spring break. And there's all these terrible young men that are trying to get at her. And she meets this kid that runs like a boating company. Like, he takes people out on boats for fishing. He's like a young man like her age, and he doesn't drink and he doesn't smoke, and all he does is study, and he always works. So she like likes him and falls in love with him. And his mom is actually Kathy Baker, that actress. So I'm going to talk about her in a minute. She's in another movie. And then Brian Brown is in here. He plays like a crooked Australian guy that's chumming the waters so the sharks will come and scare away the tourists. So they all go to his town for tourism. Really silly plot. But the most of the movie is just drama, like the girl fall in love with this boy, and this other young man's trying to drug her and seduce her and drug rape her. So she's got to worry about the sharks in the water and the young men sharks. And she ends up, her and the other young man end up saving the day. So I just got The Blob, a 1980s Blob, or the 80s Blob on VHS. So I thought I would watch my DVD of it in this nice pack right here. It's got The Blob, Christine, Fright Night, and the Seventh Sign with Demi Moore. I haven't seen that one. But anyway, The Blob is fantastic. If you guys haven't seen The Blob from the 80s, that's probably one of the best 80s horror movies right there. Cool kind of throwback to the Steve McQueen one, but very 80s and very gory. Very cool practical effects. This blob is kind of a spin on the other movie. This time you think it's from outer space, but it's actually created by our own government as a biological weapon, and it gets loose in this little town. I think it's in Louisiana, but a cool little town. And the opening's really cool in this. It's just very atmospheric. Like, it shows this little town, and it looks like it's all abandoned. Like, they show the church and the city street, like the main street, everything's abandoned. You're like, what's going on? You think it's gonna be like a ghost town or something, but then it cuts to like the high school football game, and everyone's there at the high school football game, yeah! And of course, like the star football players like making eyes at the prom queen, top cheerleader, and there's a little romance going on. And then of course there's a bad boy young man that's always in trouble with a leather jacket, and he's riding a motorcycle, and the cops don't like him. And the sheriff, it builds up a lot of these characters, and the sheriff's kind of a likable guy, and he's in love with the nice lady that runs the diner. So it sets up all these characters, but then it starts killing off characters you would not expect. This big blob, it consumes people and it burns them up, like acid gets on them and it burns them up, or it eats them out from the inside. And it has tentacles sometimes. The blob creature is really incredible. Really cool setting, and then at the end there's a cool twist at the end. Really fun 80s, lot of action, like in the sewer, in a movie theater. The blob comes out. It's really cool. They're watching this fake slasher movie. The kids go. The main girl's little brother sneaks out to go watch a scary movie, and it's like some ripoff of Friday the 13th. I want to watch that movie. It looks like a Friday the 13th movie where the guy has like overalls and a hockey mask and a chainsaw. Yeah, I'd highly recommend The Blob. This one's fantastic. Killing Affair with Peter Weller. I was just talking about Kathy Baker in Spring Break Shark Attack. She's a little bit older in that. She was younger in this, really beautiful. Peter Weller's the main star. This movie's fantastic. The thing that turned me onto it was the music was composed by John Barry, my favorite movie composer of all time, probably my favorite musician of all time. He did the James Bond movies, and the soundtrack in here is phenomenal. I don't know if I'm just partial to movies where but this movie's really good, but I don't know if I just like it a lot because of the music. It really gets you in the mood, the atmosphere, the type of music he makes. But I really like that John Barry style from the 80s, like Octopussy, A View to a Kill, Living Daylights, Howard the Duck. This kind of falls into there, and kind of throwbacks like Midnight Cowboy with that cool harmonic, kind of eerie, like all those major minor seventh chords that John Barry likes to do. Anyway, about the movie. Okay, so this takes place in the 1940s in this little town in Virginia, and it's on a river, and really cool period piece. Like, you really feel like you're transported back to the old-timey days where there's no phones or not much electricity, not many cars. The kids have to like take a boat to go to school across the river. And there's a little mill in town. I forget what kind of mill. I think it's the main employment place of the town, this mill. And the guy that runs the mill is a real a-hole. I forgot the actor's name. You've seen him in a lot of other movies. He's pretty good in this. He's a real jerk. Like, the movie starts off, it's payday, and one of the workers is counting his money. He goes, Mr. Gaither, you shorted me $5. He's like, yeah, so what? Well, last week you gave me $5 more. And he says, yeah, that was last week. This is this week. You want to quit? Like, go ahead and quit and don't get paid at all. Like, the owner of the mill is a real a-hole. And why am I friggin' explaining this whole damn movie? You know what, I'm not going to explain it. This is a good movie about killing affair. It says it all in the title. It's set in the 40s in this little Virginian town. Really cool atmosphere. There's these killer dogs on the loose in the forest. There's a steel mill in the middle of town, and the guy that runs it's a real jackass. Like, he's a real a-hole. He cheats on his wife. He beats his wife. He's mentally abusive to her, and he scares his kids. And he's a real jerk to all of his employees. He runs this mill. Peter Wellers travels into this town like he's a hobo. You don't really know much about him. He gets involved with this guy, and it really gets crazy from there. Meanwhile, these killer dogs are on the loose. Oh man, I can't really explain this without ruining it. Never mind. Son of a gun, just ruined the whole freaking video. Last one, I finally found a Rasputin Silver Streak. I watched this one with Gene Wilder, Richard Pryor. I counted it as I was watching this. He didn't come around till like after an hour into the movie. The first half of the movie is mostly Gene Wilder and Jill Clayburgh. Is that how you say it? Clayburgh. Yeah, Jill Clayburgh, really pretty girl. It's kind of like a romance on a train movie. And then he witnesses a murder and she's involved with it because it's her employer that's killed on this train. The bad guy is Patrick McNoohan from TV's The Prisoner, that old British show. He's like a really scary bad guy. For as goofy as this movie is, it's kind of a funny action thriller, but the bad guy's kind of a creepy guy. He kills someone on this train and you don't know why, but there's an FBI agent on the train trying to get to the bottom of it, played by Ned Beatty. So the first half of the movie is mostly just Gene Wilder and Ned Beatty, and then he keeps getting knocked off the train by these thugs. One of them's Richard Kill from the James Bond movies, Jaws. He has gold teeth in this movie. So a lot of it's Gene Wilder falling off of the train. Every time he falls off the train, he tries to get back on and he misses it. He goes, "Son of a bitch!" But this movie's hilarious. Like, he keeps getting knocked off the train. He tries to get back on. He's trying to save his lady friend from the bad guys. They like have her hostage. But he keeps falling off the train. He always is going on these adventures. It's kind of like a cross-country adventure movie. Like, at one point he gets on an airplane. This old lady that has a farm has like a biplane. So he gives him a ride. One point he gets knocked off again, and he meets up with Richard Pryor, he steals a cop car because the cops don't believe him, and Richard Pryor is in the back of the car handcuffed, and then it becomes like a buddy movie like halfway through, where Richard Pryor is hilarious in this. Yeah, but fun movie. A really cool last scene, like the the train crashes at the end. It's really the destructive, cool scene, cool stunt. That's about it. Sorry I babbled on so much, especially with that killing affair. So that's it for the games and movies. Guys, let me know if you see anything there you like or you want to tell me about. I definitely recommend a lot of those, the ones I got hyped about. So I probably won't be seeing you as much. I'll still get on every once in a while, but I'm going back to work, so I probably won't be on as much. So good talking to you guys later.